How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the recent winter update for Civilization 6. Now, along with this update, 2 DLC packs for Civilization 6 were released, but I'm not going to be covering those in this video. We're simply going to go over the update notes that apply to everybody who owns the game and take a look at some of the changes that have been made. Okay, so to start off with, Firaxis has now added a default world map. It is the standard size, as you can see right here. We're looking at it. Currently playing on it. Now, I know there are some pretty good, if not better, maps out there available that you can download as standalone mods for it. And as a matter of fact, they actually conflict with this map. So to get this map to load, I actually had to uninstall that mod. I think it's called Yet Another Earth Map, or Not Yet Another Earth Map, something like that. So you might want to keep that in mind if you plan to use this map and you have installed the Yet Not Another World Earth Map. Terrible, terrible name for a map. I mean, it's a great map, but terrible, terrible name. Why would you make a name so unnecessarily complicated? Just name it after whoever the creator is or whoever published it. That's just my opinion. You know, what do I know? Anyway. This is the map that Firaxis has now been including by default, or will be including by default with all the game going forward. So this applies to everybody, even those who do not buy additional DLC for the game. You will get this map. So that's great. We now, if we take a look here at my units, instead of having a sleep option for all of them, it now defaults to fortify or alert. So in other words, this is an option that a lot of players were requesting, and that was the ability to set units to alert, to wake up when enemies are within range. So for example, we have a swordsman right here. We can set it to alert now, and now the unit will activate again when an enemy is within range. So that is good. That is a good option. I can't believe it wasn't in by default. It's been in Civilization 4, it's been in Civilization 5, it's been in Civilization 3. I can't say for Civilization 2, but why on earth Firaxis thought it was a good idea to leave that option out is beyond me. Now we're going to go back to the main menu. And this is a new addition in single player. We now have a scenarios selection, and here's where you can select from built scenarios for the games. In other words, scenarios that have been custom compiled for single player will show up here. I don't think it's just limited to Firaxis' scenarios, but we do have 2 of them available if you have the DLC. That doesn't apply though to this patch. So in other words, if you don't have the DLC yet, you will still have the scenarios, but it'll be empty essentially. But that scenarios will show up there. That's in the patch notes. Added the ability to replay wonders. I'm not sure if I actually have to demonstrate this. I've seen it only once. We can load a game with it, and I'll see if I can show you. No, I actually can't because I deleted the Yet Not Another mods pack. Okay, well, we'll just have to take my word for it. There's a little button that allows you to replay wonders. Okay, next on the list of changes is the ability to actually heal your religious units. Now, I recently, in a video that I did about healing religious units in Civilization 6, pointed this out, that there is no healing button that allows you to, it sort of indicates where the player can heal these units. Man, I'm terrible at phrasing these things all of a sudden. There was no visual indicator, no button on the units that indicated that they could heal, so a lot of players weren't healing them. Well, Firaxis has now added the button. However, if we take a look here, let's take this apostle and move him a couple of tiles away. Can we do that? Okay, we have to wait till next turn. So you have my apostle moved away here from the shrine. If we take a look at the unit commands, you can see fortify until heal is still available. But if you click it and then end the turn again, the unit won't heal. It still has to be adjacent to the shrine or on the shrine itself of the religion that the unit belongs to. So in my view, this is a bit of a 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So they actually added the heal unit, or the heal button for the unit actions, but it activates when it shouldn't. Pay attention to the apostle. The apostle did not heal, and yet it's activate. The button is active. You can click it, even though it won't do anything. So yeah, like I said, they're going in the right direction here. Now at least players are aware that there is the ability to heal your religious units, but at the same time, it's going to mislead them again, because you can click the button anywhere, even when it should not be active. When because they do gray buttons out. Like, I can't spread my religion here. It says must be adjacent to a city center. That should be the same situation for the fortified until healed button. It should be grayed out, and there should be some red text saying you need to be adjacent to or on a holy site to heal this unit. It doesn't say that. So, like I said, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Okay, the next one is the ability to do coastal raids. So here we are in a map that has water on it. So what I'm going to do, pull right up here with my ship, and you'll see a new action, coastal raid. And as you can see, when you click on it, it highlights the eligible tiles for this. And when you click on them, it will actually raid that tiles. In other words, it sort of pillages from the sea. It will allow you to pillage improvements from the sea, which is really quite remarkable. It's a great step upwards. I know the Navy in Civilization 6 in general is a little bit weak, so this will help bring it up to par. It will actually make it attractive to own ships, to have a strong military, because you can actually pillage from the sea. Of course, you can always attack cities from the sea as well and capture them that way, but this is a nice little addition that they have added in the winter patch for Civilization 6. So this next one is actually a pretty big deal. Okay, now I'm not sure if I can explain this correctly, and a lot of players may not actually be aware this was a feature. But if we go into the city, for example, here is the workshop. For Germany, it's the Hansa that replaces the workshop. Now, what the workshop does, or it's the industrial zone, that's what it's called, for normal civilizations, for every civilization except for Germany. I'm sorry I had to use such a confusing example. Just pretend that the Hansa here is the industrial zone. When you would place an industrial zone before on the map, it actually had a radius of about 5 tiles, or 5 or 6 tiles, and it would affect cities surrounding it. So in other words, the best option was to have a city in the center and then have a whole bunch of industrial zones around it that the surrounding cities built, and that would boost up the production in that one primary city in the center, as well as the ones on the periphery as well, but especially that one in the center, because it covered every radius, every industrial zone. Their radius covered that city, so the bonus was being applied. Every single industrial zone, the bonus would apply to that city in the center. And this allowed players to really stack up their production. Well, it turns out Firaxis has killed this off effectively. Now the industrial zone, and also zones that provide amenities, such as the theater square. It's the entertainment complex. So industrial zones and entertainment complexes now, instead of having the number stack, it's just going to choose the district with the best multiplier, and it will use that for the city. Now, what that means is that for players who are using this stacking bonus, it's not going to work anymore. It's just going to take the best industrial zone and use that number for production, or add that number to production, or it's going to take the best number from the entertainment complex for amenities and use that number. Why did this happen, right? I'm speculating because the AI could not take advantage of it the same way players could. So it was fundamentally flawed in terms of how the AI could deal with it. They would never be able to compete with the player, and I think that's exactly why they removed it. On the upside, this is good for the players as well, because it means that you don't actually have to build an industrial zone in every single city, because it will still, the overlapping bonus still applies for the industrial zone and the entertainment complex. If you build these within range of other cities, the bonus will still apply to those cities. It's simply that additional industrial zones and additional entertainment complexes will not stack. So take that for what it is worth to you. I'm personally in favor of this because I think it's going to lead to a lot less spamming of industrial zones. Like, that was the current meta for the game. It was pretty much every city that you build, spam down an industrial zone, probably in the center, so the most cities could take advantage of it, and that has changed now with this patch that applies to everybody who owns the game, not just people who are using the DLC. So that's an important distinction to make. And it will be backwards compatible with your old game. So if you load up older game saves, any strategy that you used regarding the industrial complex, or whatever the hell it's called, it will no longer work the same way. And the same also applies to districts that provide amenities. But on the upside of this, Firaxis has decreased the production costs of wonders from the industrial era to the atomic era. Well, the industrial era, they're citing 10% cost, or hammer, or gear. It'd be gear reduction rates. In other words, it's going to cost 10% fewer gears to build it. And the same apply, and then all the way up to the atomic era, where it would be roughly around minus 40% of the gears to build those wonders from that era. They also decreased the production cost of all space race projects by 40%. This is going to be pretty huge because now the AI will actually have a chance to win space race victories. Before, it was very, very, very difficult for even the player to win a space race victory, and they would be using the tactic that I mentioned before with the industrial workshops, the industrial districts, whatever, the equivalent of the Hansa. So it was even difficult for players to get the space race victory done. So of course it was impossible for the AI. So hopefully that this change, reducing the space race project by 40%, will actually make the AI more competitive, and it'll also make up for the fact that they've sort of nerfed this, the industrial zone and the entertainment complex. The industrial zone especially. The entertainment complex that just provides amenities, and you don't need amenities for a space race. In conjunction with this, the research costs of both technologies and civics have been increased progressively from the industrial era, where they're going to cost roughly 5% more, all the way up to the information era, where they're going to cost about 20% more. Now, what does this mean? Well, a lot of players were unhappy. They were not content with the tech rate. You were able, especially if you tied in these advances. Let's go to the tech tree. You know, you can boost the technologies. We take a look here. Boosts kill unit with a slinger. So in other words, if you killed a unit with a slinger, you'd unlock archery, right? Or you would complete half of the archery technology. This led to some very fast slingshots through the technologies tree and through the culture tree, the civic tree. And hopefully increasing the cost here will sort of make up for that. It was a new mechanic that was introduced to the game in Civilization 6. Previous versions of Civilization did not actually have the boost system. I forget, each technology, each tree has a different name for it, but essentially provides a boost after completing like a little mini quest. And hopefully this will help balance that out. So yeah, like I said, increased research costs of both technologies and civics starting from the industrial era, which means that the early game civics and technologies are still going to go by relatively quickly. So it might not be as comprehensive a solution as most players were looking for. A lot of the other notes here are not all that relevant. They're not all that important. They don't carry the same sort of impact that the changes here that I've mentioned have on the game's meta, for example. Now, they have claimed that they've improved the clarity on warmongering penalties associated with taking a Civ's final city. I'm not exactly sure why they were so specific there, but it seems to me I have actually seen a little bit more transparency in terms of the diplomacy menu. Like they'll actually show up a lot. They'll show a lot more data as to why the AI is upset with you. I know some of that stuff is hidden under agendas, but just stuff that was before hidden altogether, I think, is now showing up. Can't be sure about that, though. Once again, it is a very hidden mechanic that they've never really made transparent. It's ambiguous. It's an ambiguous statement as well. Here's another important one, though. Most civilizations' unique districts now require a population to construct them, just like normal districts. This means that in cities, like you have to have a certain number of population before you can construct a certain number of districts. So let's say a city with 8 populations is capped at 2 districts. Well, before this, you could actually have those 2 districts, and then you could build the 3rd district, providing it was your unique district, because it did not have a population requirement. So in other words, it wouldn't have cost the 3 district population requirement that normal districts do. This has been changed, and now the unique districts will behave exactly as a regular district, except for, I think there's one civilization that this doesn't apply to. I can't name it off the top of my head though, but for just about every other civilization, their unique district will react the exact same way as a regular district in terms of the requirement for population to build it. For an example, let's just demonstrate this. We go into the production menu. I can't build a Hansa district in this city because I don't have enough population. I'm going to need population 13 or greater. Now before, since the Hansa was my unique district for this civilization, I would have been able to build it even though I don't have enough population. And that sort of exemplifies this change here. Now, some people have pointed out that this is going to make a couple of civilizations significantly weaker. Brazil and England have both been mentioned, so keep that in mind when selecting your civilizations. Those civilizations, I think, are trending now toward the worst side, not the worst side, the worst side of the civs. In other words, the ones that are harder to play. And lastly, spaceport districts no longer require population to construct. I don't actually have the technology to build a spaceport yet, obviously, but so this is like a change. So it's like they swapped it around. On one side, now special districts require a population to build, but on the flip side, the spaceport district has now, the population requirement has been removed. This is going to make it significantly easier in the late game to actually build a spaceport, because sometimes the requirements for population are so sky high in your most productive cities because you already have built a handful of districts there, and with every district you build, the population requirement to build the next one increases. So overall, this is once again a good change that will make winning space victories, or it would be space victories, science victories, easier for both the players and the AI, which I think is a good change. Now, there have been, like I said, various AI tweaks and improvements. I'm not going to go through them because a lot of them are very ambiguously worded, and it would take a lot of time to actually demonstrate the changes that have been there. There have also been some cosmetic changes like art assets, but I don't think that really affects the overall play of the game. So it's not that important, and if you actually want to learn all that more mundane stuff for yourself, you can go ahead and check out the patch notes, of course. Otherwise, these are the ones that I think will have a big impact on the game going forward. It changes the game's meta. And if you have any additional questions, of course, leave them in the comment section below, as always. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. And oh, by the way, I will be reviewing both pieces of DLC sometime next week. So probably the next 2 Civilization 6 videos that I put out will be for the new 2 DLC packs. So the one for Poland and the Vikings pack. Right. Thanks for watching.